Welcome to the Thresholds of Reality, the podcast where we explore mysterious and unexplained events, phenomena, and legends. Today, Kyle and I are looking at killer cults, those organizations where the leaders and the followers take their beliefs to a different level and then end up taking human life. So strap in as we examine the edges of the unknown. Welcome back, Kyle. I'm so glad to be talking to you about this topic. We've been talking about this topic for weeks now, and it is cults. Not just another religion, not just another faith, but these are the people who kind of scare you a little bit with their beliefs. Specifically, we're talking about two such.
What's up, Patrick?
What's up, Patrick? Thanks for tuning in. We are talking about Heaven's Gate from the late 90s. We're also talking about the Manson family from the 70s and 80s. And
the Jonestown Massacre, right?
And Jonestown. Yeah, Jonestown. We're going to cover Jonestown as well. Don't drink the Kool-Aid. So when you think about a cult, what comes to mind?
What comes to mind is just this fringe thinking and this eccentricness that like sucks people in. It almost reminds me of the Family Guy episode where Peter decides to start the Church of the Fonz.
The Church of the Fonz, yeah.
So just like, you know what I mean? Like they've taken this crazy idea and they're able to put it out in a way that draws people in that would normally maybe wouldn't have been able to be drawn into something like that. That very eccentric idea and thinking and perception is like someone goes, yeah, that makes sense. I could follow that. And it's crazy. But like, in researching this though, also like I looked at cults the same way I look at religion, and not necessarily like religion, but more like these mass churches that like we have here in Phoenix.
Yeah.
Like they're these huge buildings with like everybody has the church sticker on their car, and you know what I mean? Like, and they get engulfed into it. And that's how I've always, until doing a lot of the research, religion as a whole, no, but I think these little subcategories that kind of happen, I compare them kind of with cults.
Yeah. I think for me, a cult it's like a predatory organization, and it's feeding off of the lives and the livelihood of its followers to support an idea or an individual whose interest is primarily in itself or themselves and not in the followers. So one of the examples that I think is really interesting and I think is applicable here, even though it's not directly tied to cults in particular. Tim, thanks for tuning in. We had a great conversation pre-show. Appreciate you tuning in. But one of the things that came across my radar was a study regarding Nigerian prince email scams. Did you ever get any of those when you were in school?
Still do.
Still.
They still pop up once in a while.
I remember when I had my ASU email, they would show up by the dozens daily.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to block them like crazy. And just to be able to find the emails from my teachers' retirements, because it was like buried beneath all these Nigerian prince scams. And I remember it just stuck with me that there were all these scams, and I was like, who would ever fall for such a thing? And what didn't occur to me is that the ludicrousness of the claims in those email scams was a feature, not a bug. And the reason why they would say things that were so unbelievable is because they were seeking out only the most gullible. If your time is money, you cannot waste it on somebody who's not going to pay out. And so they would intentionally come up with very obnoxious and unbelievable claims about their situation, hoping to get hold of somebody who was indeed gullible. And if you think about it, a lot of these cults, maybe intentionally, maybe not, operate in a very similar way. They start with a very crazy claim. So in the case of the Heaven's Gate, that claim is that Doe, the leader, is the returned Messiah. And he's here to redeem humanity from their sins. And that idea is crazy because he doesn't look like you would picture a Messiah to look. He's just a guy wearing very plain clothes. He's got a kind of a dumb haircut. But he managed to hook 40 people to his crew, to his Heaven's Gate cult. And the claims just keep getting wilder and wilder. And in order to keep these people, in order to identify these people at the outset, the claims have to be wild. What are your thoughts on that?
It's funny as you're talking about it, and I'm not saying this in a bad way, but like, okay, I almost compare it to jury selection. So,
okay, let's hear that.
As a lawyer, kind of what I'm talking about. So, like, I was going to school for forensics and stuff like that, and part of being a forensic person was I would have to, you would have to eventually be on the stand as, the intelligent witness, you know what I mean? The expert witness.
Yeah.
So I had to take these courtroom testimony seminars and these classes about how it works and how you do it and how you would address things and stuff. And it's not like you as a lawyer that you make these exaggerated claims to get people on a jury, but they're looking for a certain person.
And you're trying to suss them out.
There's a type. So like, and it's the same thing. It's kind of the Nigerian prince thing to me in a basic way is like a lot of juries won't put like nurses, doctors, programmers, those type of people, because their jobs require so much thinking outside the box that it's more of a rational thinking, and they're actually, you know what I mean? And you want jury members that are kind of on emotion and feel. And I think that's kind of what happens with some of these cult people is just like the Nigerian prince story, they have to be so big so that they can get the gullible. Like they have to go after this type. And I think that's just what happens.
Yeah. So Aaron is saying, who's going to sign up for a cult today? I think it still applies. It's only the most gullible are the ones that sign up for cults. I don't think anybody in this chat's going to be signing up, but you never know. Hopefully we can help people understand that if any of these kind of outlandish claims start to sound good to you, you may need to touch base with your friends and family and get reset, because you might be going a little far afield.
Because even with the Manson family, they he only chose certain types of people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like dudes weren't it. He got a certain age of girls, and you know what I mean? So like, I think that's what they're good at. Almost like lawyers, when you're picking out a jury, they know who to reel in and who not to reel in. They know what kind of person that they're looking for. and I think they get good at that. You
Oh,
know who
sorry.
to keep on the outskirts. You know who to. So I think that's.
That was me. Sorry.
So I don't even know if I'm making my point, but
No, I get what you're saying. They're coming up with a way to identify a particular personality trait, and with the Nigerian scam, that trait that they're looking for is gullibility.
yes,
With the jury selection system, the trait that they're looking for is either a mindset to rule in the particular favor that they're looking for, or as far as the judge is concerned, they're looking for somebody who is unbiased, somebody who's rational, somebody who's unbiased, and who will listen to the evidence.
but there's certain people they like to make sure that's on that jury. There's a certain thought process they like to make sure that's on that jury. You know that. I don't know. I always just found it so now every time I get a jury summons or something, I'm like, well, I know I'm not what they're looking for.
Yeah.
And I don't even I try to get on juries because I think it's fun.
Toom says they don't know what they're signing up for. They just want to belong. And maybe that's true. Maybe that's true, Toom. But I would say that a lot of times they do know what they're signing up for. And they're signing up for, and because the claim is so wild right at the beginning, right at the outset, they have a hard time not understanding or being able to deny that they know what they're signing up for. And, I used to be a proselyter for my church. And now that I'm thinking about it, it's like we always started with the craziest part of our story.
We got to reel them in.
You start with the craziest thing, and then it's like everything after that, it's like, okay, that's more normal. Yeah, I can, as long as they bought into that first crazy bit, everything else after that was easy. So the first thing we're talking about today is Heaven's Gate. For our younger viewers, you will not remember this, but for our older viewers, you're certainly going to remember Heaven's Gate.
Well, should we preface this by explaining actually what a cult is?
I think we have, right? A cult disease. But if you feel like we haven't done a good job of that, go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to express what the actual dictionary definition would be.
Yeah, go ahead.
So it's actually the definition of a cult is a group of people with extreme dedication to a certain leader, set of beliefs that are often viewed as odd by others, like we've said, is in an excessive or misplaced admiration for someone or something that is popular among a certain segment of society.
Yeah.
Or a small religious group that is not part of the larger and more accepted religion that has beliefs regarded to many as extreme or dangerous.
Yeah. So you'll hear the term fringe beliefs or fringe organization. I like the term predatory. I feel like that kind of covers it a little bit better. But when we're talking about Heaven's Gate, this was
wild.
This was a group that was founded kind of in the early 70s. And it was started by a guy named Marshall Applewhite. And he and a woman named Bonnie Nettles got together. They both had kind of an affinity for both Christian theology. In fact, Applewhite is the son of a Presbyterian minister, or he was the son of a Presbyterian minister. But they also had this affinity for UFO mythology, UFO science or study. And they kind of combined the two. Applewhite had struggled. He was a teacher, he was a musician, and he had been fired from his job as a music teacher because of a relationship that he had with one of his students. And he was kind of lost for a while. And then he met up with Bonnie Nettles, and she kind of gave him direction. She said, you know what? maybe the reason that you're having all these struggles, and he was starting to hear voices at that time. She goes, maybe the reason why you're having these struggles is because you have a higher purpose. And that higher purpose is that you are the Messiah returned.
Talk about big head syndrome.
And he's like,
Like,
yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe I am the second coming of the Messiah. And so they started operating under that assumption that he was the returned Messiah. And they really struggled with a lot of finding believers because they were really out there, and it took them a long time before they found anybody. But after several years, they finally got one person, and then once they had that first person, their community really started to grow. It was in May 1974. Their first follower was Sharon Morgan, who abandoned her children to join them, and then she eventually went back to her children because they needed cared for. Applewhite stole a rental car, and then eventually was, because starting a new religion with no followers is a tough game.
Pre-internet too, man. Jeez, what do you do? A mail campaign?
Yeah, they were doing it the old-fashioned way. It's like they're just going after them, and then eventually they ended up with 39 followers. That was how many that they had at their Heaven's Gate compound. And Applewhite was considered a present representative of Christ on earth. And he taught them that he called himself Do in the religious aspect. Like, her name was T, his name was Do, like do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Because he was the highest, he was Do, and then she was second highest, she was T. But they taught that his bodily vehicle, or just his body, was inhabited by the same alien spirit which belonged to Jesus Christ. And likewise, T was presented as being inhabited by God the Father. So the two of them were like two parts of the Trinity. And they would go around and they would preach that there was, a UFO, and there was all this other stuff that was just they were getting into. Like, they started to preach to their followers abstinence from sex, sobriety.
Sounds like boring.
Well, it's ironic how much of these
No sex, you gotta stay sober. What?
Tomb says, I'm in.
No sex, you gotta stay sober.
What? Yeah, they were like, you got to keep your body clean and pure for what's to come. We're just waiting for the thing that's to come. And it was a long time, but eventually there was a comet in the 90s called the Hale-Bopp comet. Yeah, 1997. The Hale-Bopp comet, and they were like, okay, this is what's going to happen. They got everybody on the compound, and they let them know the Hale-Bopp is coming. What's up, Sticks? Hale-Bopp is coming, and when it passes by Earth, we're going to go out to meet it.
What I loved about that was it was behind the Hale-Bopp comet to stay incognito, so that no one could. It wouldn't pop up on any radars or anything. It was like they were using it to conceal their
approach
showing up. I just thought that was great.
Yeah, and so the idea was that in preparation, they would all drink this. They'd all drink this phenobarbital mixed with applesauce or pudding and wash it down with vodka,
which goes against their whole thing.
Yeah.
No alcohol.
And then they would tie plastic bags around their heads after ingesting all of that to induce asphyxiation.
I'm going to stop you right there.
Yeah.
Now, being a rational person, if we were in a cult and they said, okay, this is what we're going to do, we're going to put a plastic bag over our own head so we can suffocate ourselves as we ingest phenobarbital with some alcohol. I really would have elbowed you in the ribs and been like, "Hey, man, I think they're bamboozling us."
Well,
I
you
mean,
would
right?
think that.
I
You and I would think that because we were not convinced, right? We're not convinced. But they had 39 members of the cult, 21 women and 18 men between the ages of 26 and 72. They didn't even do it all at once, Kyle. They went in shifts. So it was 13 the first day, 13 the second day, and 13 the last day. And each group that went ahead had to be cleaned up by everybody else. And there were 41 followers total of this group living in the compound at the time of the suicide, or the mass suicide. 2 of them were left behind to kind of tell the tale. Among the dead was Thomas Nichols, brother of actress Nichelle Nichols.
That would have been us. We're
Yeah,
gonna stick around and tell the tale. So we'll let everybody know. You guys go ahead and put those plastic bags on your head.
But what's interesting is that one of the guys who was left behind, his name was Rio D'Angelo. He to this day he still talks about it, or he's tried to move on from it, but he's never denied it, right? So he's still like a believer of it.
Like, it's weird he didn't get charged with, like, I don't know, like accessory to self-suicide. You know what I mean? Like, there's got to be some kind of criminal thing in there. Like, he was a part of helping people kill themselves.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you would just think, like, I didn't read anything that said that anything like that happened to him, but you would think that, like, hey, you helped kill 37 people.
Yeah. And ABC did an interview, or they did a news story on the survivor. His name's Rio D'Angelo. And he said that he was always looking for answers, looking for purpose in his life. He loved these people, and the organization meant everything to him. He said, "We lived like we were living in a monastery. We were all celibate individuals looking forward to self-advancement." And so after everything, he said that he still feels the presence of Applewhite and Nettles, the leaders. He says, mostly it's just feeling. I don't get words, but mostly it's just feeling. I tried to get a job and people would not hire me because they thought I was part of some crazy thing. And so it's really a matter of choice for me to get along with my career, my life. So just so people would not look at me, and it's not about me, He says, I'm just a regular guy. I'm trying to be more of myself and a better person in every way I can. And everyone who had kind of come and gone from that group, there were like 5 other people who weren't at the compound who had left Heaven's Gate, who also committed suicide in the following weeks after they all killed themselves. So, like, this was intense, and I go back to that initial idea that in order for a cult to be successful, it's got to be a Nigerian prince scam. It has to be wild. It has to be. Yeah, yeah, you and me both, man. But it has to be outrageous claims. Otherwise, it won't succeed. So the next one we're looking at is the Manson family, right? Or did you have anything else you wanted to say about Heaven's Gate?
The only thing I thought about is doesn't all religion kind of give us outrageous claims?
Yes, I would say yes. They all do.
They all do. Like, like if you follow these rules and do everything, there's a place in paradise that you just go to that obviously has to be super crowded. Like the
I
house,
would say.
they have to be super close together. But like all of them, I mean, even Hinduism, Buddhism, like there's all these like rules and outrageous claims that have to happen to get to it.
Yeah, and I would say Tomb said it right here. Says they don't really know what they're signing up for. They just want to belong. And I would say, look at, if the stories themselves are not true, right? We don't really have a way to prove or disprove any of it, right? But it just seems weird, right? Why would that be the thing? Why is that the thing? But if in fact those stories are not true, then I'm just talking to myself right now. But if those stories are not true, then what is it that they're trying to offer? And Tomb says they're just trying to belong. They don't know what they're signing up for. They just want to belong. There's the in group, there's the out group, and these types of belief systems offer a way to get into the in group by performing the ceremonies, by adopting the belief systems, and by Free Kyle. As soon as Kyle gets back, he's coming right back in. Yeah, he had some big issue he was dealing with. But yeah, the in group and the out group, and that's a way to separate from who's an insider, who's an outsider. And so to differentiate between the major religions and a cult, I would say probably every major religion started out as this kind of fringe belief or predatory religious organization. And it's only because they adapt over time to be more widely accepted that they get to enjoy the status as a widely accepted religion versus a cult. They have adaptable belief systems. They don't ask their members to kill themselves right away. Maybe way down the line, but if all your members are being forced to kill themselves, then it's not going to succeed as a religion or any kind of enterprise, just by sheer numbers, right? Your numbers are going to dwindle to zero at some point.
Join our cult. Eventually, you're going to have to kill yourself. I guess, yeah, that would draw some people to be like, eh.
Yeah, they're like, I still don't know how One Piece ends, so I'm not going to do that.
You got to be able to finish that.
The Super Bowl's coming up. I just don't know that I can do that.
So, but yeah, I guess that will lead us into talking about the Manson family. And I picked the Manson family because it's one of those cults following things that like everybody knows. This has been ingrained in everybody. And sorry, I had to leave. Somebody was at my door. I didn't know what he was saying. Go Puff. I don't really know what that means. So everybody knows that Charles Manson was somebody that wanted to be famous. He wanted to be an actor. He wanted to be a musician. He wanted to be famous. That's just who he was. And we all know that they ended up killing multiple people, but Sharon Tate being the most famous. And so it was right around 1968 where he was where he assembled a group of followers, mostly all teenage girls, so it was like 16, 26 type hippies, a lot of ladies that were coming out west to go to San Francisco in the hippie movement of free expression. So he got these people together, and like he took a Beatles song and a whole Beatles album to get these people to do things for him, and like like he didn't even kill anybody. He convinced others. Like, that's some strong talking to be able to do this. So he
Stick says the only time his religion ever prompted him to kill himself was after working bingo with the senior citizens.
Jeez. So right around 68, he with his followers, that's when he decided he wanted to pursue a music career, having already learned to play the guitar in prison, which I think should have been a red flag. But that's just me. And then roping in these runaway hippies trying to head out west. And I like in the beginning where they actually like roped in one of the Beach Boys, the drummer of the Beach Boys. And like the Manson family actually hung out there, and like they were like trying to record and stuff. And
who was the drummer of the Beach Boys? Dennis Wilson?
Dennis Wilson.
Yeah.
And through that's where he met other people. Like that's where he met Candice Bergen, which I didn't know that until I was doing more research, because she originally lived in the Sharon Tate house.
That's crazy.
Prior to, so they
she wasn't a member. She wasn't a member. She
no,
was just kind of adjacent to it.
So she was with, what's his name? His last name's like Mercer, and he was like a music producer. And so through that is where he was trying to become famous, and it didn't work. And once, Sticks Boy, Murphy Brown, like it
was it Melcher? Terrence Melcher? Is that
yes,
who it
was? Yeah, Melcher, Terry Melcher. Yeah, because they were acquainted with the Manson family, and then like I said, they lived in the house where Sharon Tate and Pulaski had moved into. Which I thought that was crazy that Murphy Brown but so and like he actually came out with a song and it flopped, and once he realized that he wasn't gonna become famous through music and film, it's when he kind of changed, and that's when he kind of became, that's when they went to that ranch, that old Hollywood, like in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And they took over that old movie studio ranch, and they were all living there. But he used LSD to preach, so like they opened up their third eyes. I mean,
which he's now covered up with the Nazi swastika, by the way.
Yes. But yeah, that's where he would instruct people to kill, and that's where he would preach to them about the past, present, and future of humanity. Like, so I mean, I just think it's crazy that that he got people to kill for him, and like he was trying to do it as it was actually a race war. So they actually, when they murdered, they actually made the scene look like it was like to start, like, they did swastikas and they did all this stuff to like create a race war. And then he started doing the whole Helter Skelter thing, which is, we all know it's taken from a Beatles song.
Yeah.
Because he would tell his followers the White Album was evidence that that Charles Manson was correct about what he was preaching. which the Beatles had to go like this. Oh
It's like, oh no,
like,
not again.
so it's, you know, so like I said, they were told he foretold that actually the African Americans against whites, like I said, he was trying to create a race war about it. But so let's see. Like he did get 3 people to like turn on him, and you were witnesses against him. That was Tex Watson, Patricia Kernwickel, and Susan Atkins. They became state witnesses against the others because they're the ones that drove to Sharon Tate's house.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So they had their own butts to worry about. They were worried about jail time.
Yes.
So they rolled.
They all died. And then they drove the next night, the same group. They did that, and the next night they went out to do more murders, and that's when they went after the grocery store business owner executive. I'm going to mess this name up. Lino Bianca, and his wife Rosemary, which they didn't even know who the Manson family was at the time. They just kind of found them because they were driving around these upscale Los Angeles neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm.
So, no real intent there, which was crazy. I don't know. But what this did was this scared the crap out of Los Angeles. Like it dove into our deepest fears of nobody's safe at home. Nobody is, you know what I mean? Like, and that even the good girls can do these dastardly things.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there you go. No sticks. But let me see what else I got. So they know they'd killed 9 people, but they were actually suspected of killing 35 different people.
That's a lot.
Yeah. So I just thought it was, I mean, what a, like, and he's such a big name. Like he was convicted on 7 counts of first-degree murder, even though he wasn't even present at the murders, just because he was the driving force.
That's wild. It's wild that many people would.
In a court, like, since you convince somebody else to do it, you can like, because like
Nowadays we call it conspiracy.
Is that, yeah?
Nowadays it's conspiracy. Conspiracy to commit murder. But back in those days, that wasn't necessarily. I don't know if that was a crime yet. Conspiracy to commit murder.
So they got him. I don't know. I just, like, how much LSD do you need to take to get people to go, yep, I'm going to murder for you?
Just enough.
Just enough. I mean, that just goes back to saying these outlandish claims. It's these great speakers. Because you can't be, like me, a terrible speaker and convince people to go kill people.
You're not a terrible speaker, Kyle.
Like, I couldn't convince people.
Who said that to you? Tell me who it was.
I'll show you on the White Claw, though. But yeah, so it was 71 that he was convicted on those 7 counts, and then he later died in prison. in 2017 at 83. But she was still, man, fan mail, books, movies. I mean, like he accomplished his goal. He was famous.
Yeah, he
End
was
of
very
story.
influential.
He did exactly what he wanted to do. And I think Toon was actually telling us a pretty cool story about another murder in one of the first Manson murders. Right? He was telling us about I can't even remember. I can't pronounce his last name. It was Bobby Pucelli?
Pucelli? No. Beausoleil.
Beausoleil. But he got the death sentence for killing his friend Gary Hinn. And
Hinman.
yeah, and he was the way it was described and the way I'm reading it is he was going to be in a movie. He was trying to become an actor. He was trying to make this guy as well, and he was going to star at a low budget movie, and like he was going to help him make it, right? And as he was taking what was it? It was the audio and the first cuts of the movie out to the desert to bury it. He broke down. They ran into Manson and Beausoleil. I'm not good with French. And what I thought was crazy was, so they tortured him for days before killing him, but in the initial thing that they did to him is they cut off his ear and then they sewed it back on with dental floss.
Yeah, dude, that's insane.
Like, how crazy is that? Like, oh man.
Yeah, the Manson family has come up before, and you recall we talked about these kind of weird locations, and there was a strange tie between Krishna Venta and Case Cross in Kaysville, Utah, and Charles Manson and his group. And Krishna Venta was murdered by his followers, and the building that he used for his church eventually was taken over by the Manson family. Yeah, that was pretty wild. The Manson family, they had nobody who could tell them what to do.
I mean, just the power of scaring an entire city.
So what was the Manson family body count? It's like 33?
They're suspected of 35, but it ended up being 7 counts that they were actually got pinned with.
Yeah. And then at the Heaven's Gate, they had 39 on their compound that killed themselves, and then 5 additional afterwards. So it's like 44. Body count's like 44. But both of those pale in comparison to the last one, Jonestown.
This one was, I had actually, through, prior research, I had actually merged Jonestown and Heaven's Gate into one. I thought the Kool-Aid was that. I didn't really realize that Jones Gate was its own. That's where the drink of the Kool-Aid term, which poor Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
They got a bad rap on that.
They got a bad rap. They didn't deserve it. Jonestown, I think, is like the absolute king of killer cults. Like in the modern era. They had over 900 deaths. Their body count's over 900 in Jonestown. And they started out, their beginnings actually were in Indiana, of all places. It seems like they always start in Indiana and then they move to California.
Yeah.
Or they start somewhere and then they struggle to find followers because of the heavy Christian influence.
Well, it seems like the further you come west, the more open thinking people have.
Yeah. So their leader was a guy named Jim Jones, hence Jonestown. And he started a church that he called the People's Temple. And the idea behind the People's Temple was that they were going to integrate Black, white, Asian, whatever, Hispanic, everything was going to integrate. And they were going to be socialists, communists. And in Indianapolis, in 1955, the people didn't take too kindly. So
they're not.
So they pushed them out. They've sent them, and they ended up in Redwood Valley, California, in 1965. And in the early 70s, they opened other branches in LA and San Francisco before finally moving their headquarters to San Francisco. But they wanted, Jim Jones was a big fan of Lenin and Stalin and Mao Zedong. And he was like, I want to have a communist utopia of my own. I want to have a socialist communist utopia of my own. And so he started looking for land that the People's Temple could purchase and start a compound. And they found that in Guyana, which is a country in the north part of South America. They actually, I think they speak English there. They don't speak Spanish there, actually speak English and maybe a little Dutch. But it was an British colony in South America. And they went down there and they bought some land and they started moving people there. And at its height, there was about 1,000 people there. And the composition of the whole crew was approximately 70% African American. 45% of Jonestown's residents were Black women. They had 638 women in total, 361 men, for a total of 999.
I know a lot of guys that listen to our other podcasts that would like those odds.
Well, I'm sure it was manufactured to be that way. But that was in 1977. And they would rehearse what they were going to do in case somebody came along and started hassling them. They would do these things called white nights, where they would practice a revolutionary suicide. And they would practice lining everybody up, including the children. They were given a small glass of red liquid to drink. That's the Kool-Aid. It wasn't actually Kool-Aid. Kool-Aid gets a bad rap, but it was like Flavor Aid or something, some generic. They were told that the liquid contained poison and that they would all be dead within 45 minutes. And they would drink it. When the time came, when they should have dropped dead, Jim Jones told them that it wasn't real and that it was just a test. It was a loyalty test. And that the time was not far off that it would become necessary for them to die by their own hands. The crazy thing. Okay, so we'll get to the craziest thing in a bit. But over time, people were starting to get really concerned about what was going on at Jonestown. And in November of 1978, there was a surprise health inspection where a delegation flew to Jonestown to investigate what was going on there. It included Jack Spire, Neville Anaborn, Richard Dwyer, a bunch of high ups, reporters from NBC, from the San Francisco Examiner, Washington Post.
From America flew to this place?
They flew down there to see what was going on. And it's a very famous story. It was put on the news. And it looked like things were going great in Jonestown. They made it look like Jonestown was the socialist utopia that everyone had been waiting for. And The only problem was that Jim Jones himself was suffering from bad health and he himself was dying. Well, after everybody left, the time finally came, and it was, let's see, November 18th, 1978. Jim Jones called everybody to the pavilion, and it was right after these people left. He says, the time's come, and they drank their drinks, they drank the Kool-Aid, and they recorded the whole camp. The whole camp. They call it the death tape. It's 44-minute cassette tape of this gathering and them drinking their poison and then people dying. And the total number of deaths was 916 people.
Shit. I like that Jim Jones claimed he was the only heterosexual on Earth.
Oh man, he killed so many people. And it wasn't long after that the suicides were discovered and all of the fraud that was going on there came to light. That the story that the news had been fed was false. Surprise, surprise. And that their report on just how great things were going down there had to be revised because it was a total disaster. 900 people lost their lives, majority of them black. And it was a modern day horror. There's a series on Netflix called Midnight Mass, where basically the same thing happens. Everyone takes their poison and then they all turn into vampires. So spoiler alert. Sorry about that. But it's based on that moment is based on this event. And it is absolutely terrifying. Just imagine 1,000 people all drinking poison at the same time. And imagine you're among them, right? And they want you to drink it. Like, are you going to do that? I don't want to die.
No.
And they had to be conditioned to do it. You know, Jim Jones is like, drink the poison, and they don't die. And so every time that they're asked to drink the poison, they're like, it's not really poison. It's not really. This isn't it. This isn't the time. But it finally hit. So if you go on Wikipedia, they have the death tape uploaded. You can listen to all 44 and a half minutes of it. Absolutely chilling.
Can't forget that he used to be a door-to-door. He sold pet monkeys door-to-door.
Yeah.
And they had a monkey there.
Yeah, I'm sure they had a lot. Guyana's in
Mr. Muggs.
Yeah. So what do these organizations all have in common? They have a charismatic leader. They have outrageous claims. They have an unsustainable society. And then they have death that follows.
Yep. It's crazy.
So I would say the next time that you get a knock on your door with anybody making outrageous claims about religion or God or Jesus, just pump the brakes. Say, hey, are you willing to die for this religion? And if they say yes, you can kindly escort them out the door. No.
Right?
No.
I like here they got this. There was one person, because there was actually 11 people that didn't die because they weren't actually there at the moment of doing it. There's one there was an elderly African American. She overslept.
Yeah.
And she woke up the next day and she's like,
where's everybody?
And then she found all the bodies covered in sheets and she was like, what? There was another couple people that went on a picnic. They went on a picnic instead. We're going to go out for a picnic for a while.
It's a good choice.
But what they ended up doing is they used that as a way to escape.
You know what else happened is a lot of people really didn't take the Kool-Aid. They didn't really want the Kool-Aid. And so the Jonestown heavies, like the guys that they had enforcing everything, they injected their people who stuck around but didn't drink the Kool-Aid. They injected them with lethal injections and killed them by force. And that was the quote unquote revolutionary suicide, is that you're getting killed, and they were just pretending it was suicide.
But Jones didn't even drink the Kool-Aid. He was shot.
Yeah.
So he wasn't even buying into his.
He didn't drink the Kool-Aid.
No, he didn't drink his own Kool-Aid. But I mean, that's just crazy. But I mean, I guess there's, and I think it's Tomb said or something. It is. It's that feeling that it's a natural human desire is to be accepted and a part of something.
Well, Kyle, I would say it's not just that. I would say there's another piece to it, which is if you saw everything everywhere all at once, there's this really strong current of nihilism. The fear, not fear, but just the belief that there's nothing, that the universe is full of endlessness, that life itself is a statistical inevitability, but that it doesn't really mean anything in the long run, that nothing matters. And that's a scary proposition. And I think a lot of people, not just wanting to belong, but to connect to something deeper and not face nihilism. They don't want to adopt nihilism because it is really scary to think that there's no meaning to life, because it's meaningful to us. Life is quite meaningful. And so I think there's this push to reject nihilism, find something else, and connect with people, to belong to a tribe. I think that's all part of the same kind of environment that allows these types of organizations to sprout and to flourish, and ultimately commit heinous acts in the name of religion. But at some point, we have to find something else to connect to, something that isn't going to harm us.
So they recorded it.
Did you play it? Are you playing it right now?
How much I've loved you.
You hear it?
How very much I've tried my best to give you a good life.
That's Jim Jones.
But in spite of all that I've tried, a handful of our people, with their lives, have made our life impossible. There's no way to detach ourselves from what's happened today. Not only we're in a compound situation, not only are there those who have left and committed the betrayal of the century. Some have stolen children from others, and they're in pursuit right now to kill them because they stole their children. And we are sitting here waiting on a powder keg. I don't think this is what we want to do with our babies. I don't think that's what we had in mind to do with our babies. It was said by the greatest of prophets from time immemorial, no man takes my life from me.
I don't know how much you want to play, but...
So to sit here and wait for the catastrophe that's going to happen on that airplane, it's going to be a catastrophe. Almost happened here. Almost happened. The congressman was nearly killed here. But you can't steal people's children. You can't take off with people's children without expecting a violent reaction.
But you end up actually hearing like everybody in pain, though, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just absolutely devastating. And I don't really want to listen to a whole lot of it, but can you post the link to that in the chat if anybody wants to hear it?
Free at last. See, keep your emotions down. Keep your emotions down. Know that it will not hurt if you'll be quiet. If you'll be quiet.
Jeez. That's hard to hear, man.
Yeah, it's just gross. I mean, people will do all kinds of things for their kids and he convinced them that they were doing it. What they were doing was the best thing for their kids.
Yeah.
And so just many children died that day. Many adults died that day, but I think about the children and their lives. And that just is devastating to me.
It really is.
So what's our takeaway, Kyle? Let's wrap this all up with a bow.
Watch what you're getting into. Pay attention. See the warning signs.
I would say if there's anything that's like trying to take you out of your life and your family, people who actually are connected to you and trying to isolate you, pump the brakes, look around, touch base with your folks, touch base with your people, because it's headed somewhere that's not good. What do you think?
I think you put it in a nice bow.
Well, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in today. Know that you are all very busy people and that you have a lot going on in your lives. Thank you so much. We appreciate all of the comments in the chat. You guys make this so much fun. You make it so much worth doing. We'll be back next week. We do have an interview, I think, on Tuesday.
On the 3rd.
On the 3rd. And we are going to be talking to Amber Schultz, who we were supposed to talk to 2 weeks ago. We had some complications at work, but now we'll be back with that interview on Tuesday. And she does what's she doing? The ghost sighting, right? She's a ghost hunter. So we'll get more ghost hunter tales, hopefully, out of Amber, and we will see you guys on Tuesday. Until then, please keep on exploring the edges of the unknown.